Hello, Tar Heel Nation. We are back. Another episode of UNC Hoops Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dan DeWitt, and I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. Hope the food and company and all that was better than the basketball that we saw over this and football for that matter over this Thanksgiving holiday. Of course, we're here to talk about the basketball. Thank you guys for jumping in, watching, listening, however you're taking in the podcast and helping me to unite Tar Heel Nation. Kind of a downer of a podcast here, but we're going to try to make some sense of it, talk through it, and see where we go from here. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for being here, for always supporting the podcast, um, and helping me out in times like these. So yeah, we're gonna jump in, talk about it, possibly see Gil jump on here for a little bit anyway. But yeah, Phil Knight Invitational for the Tar Heels, PK 85, whatever they were all calling this thing. Not the results we wanted, not really the basketball we wanted from the Tar Heels. So we squeak out a win back on Thanksgiving Day, 89-81 over Portland, which Portland did look better. They took down somebody in the second round. Who was it? I don't remember who they beat in the second round, but it made it better that it was a compatible or close, competible. I can't talk right now, but we're gonna try. But yeah, it looked better for us not winning by as much against them the way they came back on Friday and beat whoever they did. Someone in the comments probably let me know. But then we followed that up and let Caleb Grills, white dude off of Iowa State, looks like a middle schooler, was 4 for 24 from three coming into the game against us, and goes 7 for 11, I think it was, from three against us, 31 points, something crazy like that. And we just act like we can't stop him. Like this guy's Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, something like that. That we just can't stop him, and we lose 65-70. Um, and yeah, it stinks, but we could come out of here 2-1. And and really, the crazy part is we got UConn and Iowa State now playing for the championship uh, tonight. And you think, it'd have to be Michigan State. It could be us. It could be Alabama. But no, Iowa State, at Villanova, another one. Iowa State beat them in the first round, which, they're kind of struggling and, new coach and two starters out and stuff like that. They got reasons. We got, our team back with Pete Nance filling in and honestly, we look like the same team that we did at the beginning. I know I've talked in a couple of group chats and Twitter and stuff like that with people, and we look like the team that we were at the beginning of last year, with same guys, same kind of thing. And maybe they think that they can just turn it on at the end again and have the run that we did, like we did last year, and maybe they can. But and we'll get into it. But Hubert Davis is coaching the same way. Still talking about the depth and the bench that we have and stuff, and guys still can't get in. Um, and so, yeah, we're left with a 101-103 loss to Alabama in 4 overtimes. Um, and and really for both teams, but coming down the stretch of the regulation and all 4 overtimes, execution was poor. It wasn't like guys were knocking shots to tie it to go in overtime. It was tied every time, and it was somebody missing a shot or turning the ball over or getting blocked or whatever it was. I mean, I don't even remember which one was what overtime, but um, I think it was they missed a shot in regulation, send it overtime. Caleb Love sells for a three when it's tied. Um, and so we go to double overtime. Pete Nance blocks a shot, I think, in double overtime, send it into triple overtime. Again, I don't remember what happened in the triple overtime, and then like we throw the ball, like both teams throwing the ball away at the end of the 4th regulation, but eventually they outdo us, and so we still have not beaten a quality team this year. I know College of Charleston has gotten some wins; they've looked decent this year, but that's not the caliber of team we want to beat this year. UNCW has not looked good. We obviously, we've talked about that one. I have no idea. I haven't seen about Gardner Webb. James Madison that's not the caliber of team that we expect to beat this year. Well, we expect to beat them, but that's not the one we're trying to compare with and match up with. Um, Iowa State and I mean Alabama's ranked. They were 18 here now. They've lost a game this week, but not the team we are trying to match up or compare ourselves with. And so bringing Gil in here live as we started the podcast. Gil, it's been a long time. First, how you doing? I know this is not the greatest time to ask that, but overall, how you been?
Yeah, it would be doing a lot better if the Tar Heels had managed to pull it out in first, second, or third overtime. But overall, doing pretty well. World Cup soccer's on, college basketball's back. And this game just made me more excited about the season in some ways. And also, definitely raises some red flags, the early season. So I'm not sure what all you covered so far, but thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I've just kind of gone over kind of the scores and where we went this weekend in, barely beating Portland, although that it helped us the way they looked Friday by I don't remember who they beat. But they looked good again on Friday, so it didn't make our close win with them look as bad. But then obviously we follow that up by letting Caleb Grills knock down 7 threes after only hitting 4 in the entire season before that, to beat us, Iowa State. And this one, I kind of ended it right before you came on, is we haven't beat anybody really this year. We're not trying to compare with College of Charleston and Gardner Webb and James Madison and even Iowa State. That's not the caliber of team that we're trying to match up with or be compared to. Alabama at least was ranked today, and it would have been nice to go 2-1, even if it would have been in the third place game as opposed to the championship. But go to 2-1 and to actually get a quality win, things like that, and we just can't do it. And I was talking about kind of the poor execution in all of those. Like you said, we had chances in pretty much every end of regulation, end of overtimes, and it was really poor on both teams. It wasn't like people were knocking down shots to tie the game and to put it in overtime. It was people missing shots. Caleb settled for a 3 at the end of one overtime. Pete Nance blocking a shot, and then ultimately us kind of just throwing the ball away at the end of the game.
Yeah, there, just not enough winning plays being made. But you raise a good point. The two things that stood out to me in this particular game are two of the things that I dislike the most about watching Carolina basketball is turnovers and the inability to guard the 3. And there was a player today, the Ohio transfer, I'm forgetting the player's name for Alabama, that was 7 of 10 from 3-point. At one point in the game, they were 13 of 26, shooting 50% from 3-point range. And it's unfathomable when a team is playing that well, shooting the 3, that you're not contesting those shots better. The drive and then the dish, and then they're sitting there wide open. I mean, if their legs hadn't gotten tired, they would have put us away probably in the first or second overtime, because there were still open looks. So, and there was a couple crucial turnovers, throughout when it's a 2-point game and 4 overtimes, the margins are extremely slim. So there's some positives. The play of Puff Johnson was a positive. I didn't know until after the game why Armando didn't come back in. I was like, why is he continuing to sit? I thought it would have been nice to have him in some of those late game executions. And then I'll pose a question to you around like the lineup. Is, after seeing how Puff Johnson, he just made plays where he just got involved and he brings energy. Is our best starting 5 not what we've seen as a starting 5?
Yeah, and I had thought that at one point. I was like, and I don't really care about starting 5, but to your point, is our best lineup with Puff in there, playing a little bit small with either one of Mondo or Pete Nance, I think is what you're getting at, right?
Yep.
And at first I kind of thought, like, if Puff Johnson can come off injury, and this is like his second, third, he played one game before Portland, so it's his second, third, and fourth game back. If he can get this many minutes in his fourth game back, is he that much above the other guys that we can't get Styles some minutes, that we can't get even done some more minutes. And Tyler Nickel hasn't seen the floor in a couple of games now. Like, is he that much above it? But then, as obviously this game went on, he gave us some major minutes, and you're right, he just makes the plays. He doesn't over, I don't know, over excite you in any one spot. His shooting, he's knocked down shots, but he's not been a deadly shooter. His defense has been really good, but it's not like he's leaky and shutting people down. His rebound is excellent. It's more kind of timely stuff that he does, and kind of like you say, he just makes the right play at the right time. He's in the right
Diving on
spot.
that loose ball, to get us a possession to perhaps win the game.
And so I thought kind of that exact thing is like, are we better off with just one of Mondo and Pete in there? But I don't know. I think I can go back and forth, and maybe it's a thing. We kind of thought that Hubert would kind of do this as more kind of NBA, where it's whoever's got the hot hand and we ride that. And we had that game where Pete led us in the first half, where he had 16 of his 18 points in the first half and kind of kept us in it, Gardner Webb or something like that. And then there was the game where he kind of went off for 28 points. And so we've seen kind of him and Mondo in there together and had some success. But then, obviously tonight, Puff definitely gave us some huge minutes and gave us quality minutes. And I missed. I watched the first overtime at home, and I had to go somewhere, and so I'm watching the rest on my phone, and I kind of miss. And so I'm like, first off, we didn't see Pete Nance for a long stretch in there. I was like, did I miss it? Did he fall out? And then, the last overtime, whatever, Pete's back in there, but then Mondo is like, did I miss something else? Like, did Mondo follow out? And I was just all messed up. And
yeah, it was a bit chaotic and confusing, even if you were watching it in person. And clearly the Zebras were not least of those that were confused watching this one. Tar Heel Nation, I'll say this: there's no reason to panic. I think we learned that from last year. If you didn't already know that it's still early in the season. There's time for them to make adjustments and get things right. Did everybody play perfectly? No. Did the coaching staff do everything right and make the right decisions with everything? No. But, the takeaways out of this, I think, are seeing at least we know that we can rely on Puff. And I thought I saw some good things out of Dunn as well. So I'd like to see increasing minutes. I've always been someone who's advocated I want to see Styles out there. But, the coaching staff obviously is there during practice, knows what's going on, and so they know who's ready and who's not. But it's not time to hit the panic button. It'll be interesting to see how this team bounces back, not going back to Chapel Hill, but spending the night in Portland, going straight to Bloomington, Indiana, is my understanding, and competing. Is that Wednesday night against Indiana?
Yep. Yeah, so I hadn't heard that, so I was kind of wondering that if they would go all. I mean, that would be tough to go all the way back to Chapel Hill. And you think you get to Bloomington kind of the day before. I know it's a late game, but you don't want to necessarily show up just on game days. Then you're going Tuesday at least. So is it worth to go back just for Monday? There are definitely people that are hitting the panic button. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but I got my hand hovering over kind of like, what in the world is going on here? Because I mean, we've said it. This is all the same guys that came back, and we were excited about that because of the way the season ended last year. But it is the same guys that came back and struggled all the way from October, November through January, possibly into February. I don't know exactly when kind of that we got blown out in 2 games. I was looking at last year's schedule. We only lost 9 games. It feels like we lost a lot more early in the season last year, but we had kind of 2 blowouts. I think the second one being the Wake Forest game that everybody talks about, and then we kind of flipped it. I think that was in February, but it's the same guys that did that last year. And I know we text with Blake as well, and he's like, they're doing exactly what they did last year. And I don't know if that's sustainable to do what we did last year and just bank on making the run. But I do see your point as well, as like last year we weren't necessarily winning these games. We were, and we haven't now these last 2 games, but I feel like it was worse. I feel like we're in a better spot, but there is a lot of the repeated, I don't know, processes, or, somebody in here said, trust the process. Yeah. It's the comment I have up now, trust the process, but I feel like we're kind of rerunning what we did last year and kind of, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. And I kind of feel like we're doing that. We're beating our head against the wall and expect something different to happen here.
Yeah, and I would like to, I've talked about this on this podcast, over the last 2 years around, and particularly last year, just seeing action going toward the basket in those late game, it's the final possession situation. I just feel like you're so much more likely to draw a foul, get a good look, maybe hit a teammate, that's making a good cut, or get a tip in. Yes, there is the risk of drawing, a charge, and the way that the game is seeming to be ref these days, that possibility seems too high.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's the right play, and I'm not a big fan of the ISO ball, dribble it around without a couple passes. I don't know, call me old school. I know Dean Smith wanted to see each of the five guys touch the ball. I'd like to see at least a few passes.
Right. And
A pass, ball screen, action, go toward the basket.
And that's when we get those charges anyway. Is when it's an ISO ball, somebody's somebody going to the rim out of control on their own, and they get the charge call. Whereas, like you said, if we get that ball moving and then somebody gets some action going to the hoop, you get a foul called on the defense to get some free throws, or we get the ball up on the rim and get an offensive rebound because somebody came over to try to block the shot, or whatever it is. But yeah, as opposed to kind of Caleb pulling up for three in the first overtime when it's tied, like let's go try draw a foul, make the refs make a call, or again get that ball up on the rim and get a tip in or something like that. But
on the flip side, we did play some pretty good defense when they had the possession to go and win the game. I think, twice at the end of the game, and then at the end of the first overtime. It's kind of confusing to remember what all happened in what sequence. But, there's a couple times when we had, good defense. And I would say that about Pete Nance was in overtime with 4 fouls. He never fouled out, and he had many different switches on the ball, moved his feet well, got several blocks, and just, stood his ground. So, that game could have gone either way. I definitely think with Armando going out late in the game, that their big guy, Biaka or whatever, did make some big time plays. I don't know what to think about that goaltending overturn rule, and I don't know the rules to that specific. I thought it was interesting that the ball went to the team with the arrow possession. I didn't really like that. I don't. That's a tough way. We didn't lose the game on that play because
right.
Seth Trimble came in, who hadn't played since the first half, I don't think, and lays out to get a possession that unfortunately we squandered with not getting the ball in bounds. I would almost rather see Leaky Black taking that ball from out of bounds, just someone that you trust, a fifth-year senior. But maybe this team definitely showed some fight and some grit in this game, and that's something that we can take away. And hopefully that's something that can kind of snap them into, at this point in the season, if they haven't realized that every game's going to be a fight, then I don't know what it's going to
what
take.
do you do? Right? Yeah. Yeah. And I'll eat a little crow. I kind of texted you guys and said, like, I feel like we're going to keep this game close, but we're never going to kind of feel like we're in it or we got control of it. And I do feel like they came out in the second half, played harder than what I kind of expected. I did and like to see that. Like Mondo came out really tough in the second half and kind of felt like other guys fed off of that. And we did look better, much better in the second half than we did in the first half, where I just felt like we were just doing what we could to keep it within arm's reach, and that was with their kind of best player not having done anything in the first half. But
Leaky shut down that player. I expected us to win the way that we came out in the second half, and we battled and got over that hump. There was a point when it was like, are we going to get over that hump?
Right.
I think we missed a free throw or something like that, and then we finally did. And then I expected us to, all right, we missed the opportunity to close out Iowa State with
I think that's what we've done. We've done a lot this year. Is we've won these other ones against the teams we listed earlier, but they're not Alabama even, let alone some of the top tier teams that we want to beat later in the season. So. Just I feel like we have the firepower, and we feel like we can just kind of relax at certain spots, and it lets people hang around. Or in this case, now we just don't put them away, and they come back, and it it took 4 overtimes, but we still did lose this game. And nobody should be at Fire Hubert. I want to express that adamantly before I say what I'm going to say. I don't want Hubert fired. I'm not even close to that. Like my hand is way away from that button. I'm not trying to get anywhere close to that. But I think there is some questioning to kind of the execution and play call at the end of, again, regulation, at the end of whatever overtimes it was, where we had at least control of it. Like you said, when Seth Trimble gave us the ball back with 3 seconds, I mean, what a gift to get it like under our own basket, pretty much 3 seconds to go, and we can win the game. And we just get nothing out of it. And I know there was at least one other overtime, and as well as the one that Caleb. Well, there was the one that what was it? Pete Nance threw court, all the way across the court, and Caleb couldn't handle it, went out of bounds, and we got a turnover. There was one Caleb pulled up for the three. Like there's opportunities there to get something, like we were talking about earlier, get something going to the basket, move the ball around a little bit, make them play some defense, and make the refs call something, even if it ends up being a charge. That make them call something or get the ball up on the rim. And then we go back to the old adage that I know both of us have kind of been talking about for 2 seasons now, is getting that bench. We've already mentioned we'd like to see Styles, we'd like to see Dunn a little bit more. I've enjoyed seeing Seth. I don't know that he needs more minutes than where I think he's kind of at a good spot, just because he's a little bit limited offensively. I think we haven't gotten a ton from him offensively, but and I know there's talk of Jalen Washington coming back. Is he kind of a missing piece that we need there? But I don't think we can expect a bunch right away. But yeah, again, I want to make sure it's adamant. I'm not saying like Hubert's horrible, we need to get rid of him, but I do think, and maybe it is, it's still his second season. He's still filling out maybe these teams, or this team, I should say. We can't say much because obviously the way last season ended, but and Bill Walton was all over it today. Like we need a bench, and we talked about all off season how deep this team could be, but right now we're not deep. We don't have the depth that everybody's talked about.
Yep, I agree with you on all of that. I was actually pleased to see 3 reserves on the court in the first half, even though there was offensive struggles. They're going to have to figure that out. And I think that Tar Heel Nation has taken for granted the Hall of Famers that have been at the helm in that position for a few years, running the men's basketball program. And Hubert is only in his second season. We all wanted to win that game, of course. And Hubert wanted to win that game. Did he do everything right? No, I think he might have made a few errors and maybe execution or play calling or whatever the case may be. The players obviously gotta execute. They're the ones to do it. But I think we forget that he's only in his second season and he didn't have prior head coaching experience other than the JV team. So there are going to still be, even in his second year, even though he made it to the national championship game in his first, there's going to be those games like that where, different substitution pattern here or different play call there or getting the right person inbounding the ball. Hopefully he's going to get those things. But yes, that's something that I just have been used to with Carolina basketball for so many years, is a deeper rotation, particularly earlier in the season, living with some of the mistakes that you're going to see out of young players, living with some of the inconsistent flow that you're going to see as guys figure it out with one another. But I was actually pleased to see some of that in this game and in this tournament, knowing that that's going to ultimately help them down the road. I'll take an early season loss. I don't want to take an early season loss, but I'll take an early season loss at the expense of getting guys experience that can come and step in game situations later in the season and produce and know their role and that kind of thing. So I want to see the bench players as much as possible. I'm going to quote Blake, who said, this Iron Five can't be the rule. It has to be the exception. So surely you can rely on key players, but we need to develop bench. And I think that we have enough talent with Seth Trimble, DeMarco Dunn. It will be interesting to see Jalen Washington when he's healthy. I understand that he's getting close. How much he can be a contributor, I agree. We can't expect too much too fast, but he could be a key piece for this team for sure. He's definitely looks to have the length and love to see the skills to match. And hopefully this team can just stay healthy. The ankles, I know Leaky took a hard ankle twist, and then Mondo appeared to be limping, and then, came out of the game and didn't play late. So, just getting this team healthy and surviving the gauntlet of the ACC season as we're approaching with Virginia Tech in early December.
Yeah, and I was just kind of looking over the stats here. I know Grant has jumped in, and a lot of people active here in the chats here. 300 is very positive. I mean, I need some of his energy here of staying positive. I love that. Grant had mentioned Jalen Washington being concerned about the giving up the threes, and again, that's something I think that Hubert's got to work out. I know we got on Roy plenty about letting one player go off from three, or even a team just kind of go off from three. It seems like we overhelp so much, and I think that was kind of Dean Smith taught that helping, playing defense as a team. And but now with the three ball, the way it's taken off in basketball so much lately, you're one step too far away from your guy, and it's pretty much a wide open three for him. And
Yeah, I
guys are
don't like
knocking that
seeing
down.
I don't like seeing the help dive in, leaving the corner three open, and then they nail it. I mean, I saw way too much of that in this
Yeah.
game, and I don't know how to unlearn those principles or
Yeah,
whatever, that
that's maybe
instinct
the tough part.
to guard the ball. I mean, it's instinctual. If you step on the
Yep.
basketball court, that's your instinct. But three is deadly, and that's what kept Alabama in that game for sure. I mean, I don't even know how many twos they had during regulation, but
Right.
it was, and even in overtime, Carolina had, I think, a 5-point lead or something in one of the second overtime period, perhaps, and then a 3-pointer got Alabama back in it, and it's just, yeah, that's definitely something that concerns me, and I just hate watching.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
hard
and
not to
that's
throw
kind of the
stuff at the
scout.
TV.
That's the scout for Alabama too. Is I mean, you look at Nate Oates at Alabama, as they shoot a lot of threes. So I mean, that should even be part of the scouting report. Is let's help a little bit less and stay out there. But like you said, it may be instinctual as well too. Just like you see your guy getting beat off the dribble, you're going to take that extra step in to try to help out. And when you're one step away, it's really tough. Um,
I do think the game changes a little bit for us defensively with Armando out. Like, you can trust in him as a rim protector a little bit more than you can Pete Nance. Although Pete Nance did come up with some blocks, so that was more on his guy, I think. But I think Armando is decent as a rim protector, and it allows for guys that get beat in the dribble to
yeah.
keep the threes in the perimeter guarded.
Well, they talked about it too the first half when he went out with that foul trouble. When Alabama started driving right to the rim, and like I said, Pete has had some blocks. Most of his blocks are from behind as people are coming and stuff like that. It's not necessarily going straight up blocking guys and challenging them. And without Armando, I think it hurts us rebounding wise. Overtimes they got plenty of second chances when we just couldn't finish the possession
I'm glad you
getting the
mentioned that,
rebound.
because that has been an early season trend that we don't like to see, is the inability to get the defensive rebound, which happened on a couple possessions. I think there was one possession late in the game, or one of those overtimes, where Alabama got two offensive rebounds. You know what I mean? And then that's killer. That's killer when you play good defense and then you don't get the rebound and close out that possession. So we need. I've seen more concerted effort from Linky Black to hit the glass. I want to see more from Nance, if he's in there defensively, boxing out and getting rebounds. Um,
Yeah.
so
So I was looking at the box score from tonight because I hadn't even seen it until we started the show. But Puff Johnson played 48 minutes tonight. I know it's four overtimes, but Pete Nance had 25 minutes and Puff Johnson had 48 minutes. Um, and Seth Trimble only had 7. Again, we talk about kind of how deep are we. I don't know if 7 minutes kind of says if you're in the regular rotation. But uh, to kind of be on the positive of Hubert Davis, he did give Will Shaver, I think it was foul trouble kind of necessary, but Will Shaver went in there for a minute or whatever it was. But
hit 2 big free throws in a
he
game that
did,
went into multiple overtimes.
right.
Good job on him.
I mean, yeah, I mean, if that doesn't earn you a little bit more of a look at something, you go in, he's ready when he comes in. But let's transition a little bit here into what's coming up. Obviously, we have Indiana on Wednesday, big marquee matchup for ESPN and the Big Ten Challenge, Big Ten
9:15, I
ACC Challenge,
think.
whatever's. Yeah, I believe it's a 9:15 Eastern tip. And then we start ACC play right after that next Sunday in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. That's a 3 p.m. Eastern tip on the ACC network. So, and then we go a little bit farther. It's Georgia Tech We get a whole week there in between. Well, almost a whole week, Sunday to Saturday before Georgia Tech. But um, we've talked about a little bit of how worried are we, and it's kind of what I tried to get at with the title of this is will we ever develop depth and kind of stay vigilant here as to are we in trouble, yes, are we just not that good,
I
we've
think it's
covered
too
some of
early to
that.
know.
Yeah, I'd say we've kind of talked about that, but going
I can
forward,
still
like,
see this team finishing atop the ACC, although early season from what I've seen, Virginia looks very strong.
well, as I say
Um,
to that, Christian says, feel like the AC is going to be trash again this year, but actually insanely competitive. Yeah, it may be competitive, kind of for the wrong reason. Going into it, we thought maybe the Teals would win it, somewhat easily. Virginia's, like you said, has looked really good. Duke has been probably, I would say, about where we have. I don't know if they beat anybody, but they didn't look horrible in the Champions Classic. I know they got beat pretty 19, I think it was, to Purdue today. So they don't have literally their marquee win yet this year. They may be kind of in the same position as us, but just even this next couple weeks as we got Indiana, we start ACC. Like where are you standing at? How confident you are? We get a win in the next 3 games, or do we go 2-1, 1-2, like
yeah, if
three
I
and
had to
zero?
say
I don't
right,
know.
if I had to say right now that winning it at Indiana seems tough, and it may depend a bit on the health of Baycott. I don't know. I think Virginia Tech is always a difficult place to play in Blacksburg, but I think Carolina pulls that out, and I think they beat Georgia Tech. So that's what I would go with, and I'd be okay with that as much as I would love a marquee win against Indiana, because at this point Carolina hasn't beaten anybody, and they've lost to the only two Power Five teams that they played.
Yeah, so I think initially I'm with you, but again I don't know. Again, last year's so hard to remember because of that run at the end of the year. I almost feel like Indiana is like everybody's down on the heels now. This is one to where Caleb Love respond, like, hears some of that negative talk and responds and comes back strong or something. Like we somehow pull off the win. I say that like it's impossible to win in India. I don't think it's impossible. I haven't seen much of what Indiana's done this year, but it's not like they're out there beating up on everybody. I think I would have heard it a little bit more. So I don't think it's impossible. I think it's more the environment that kind of scares us. It's we haven't won this big game like we're talking about. Um, and I would, like you said, I would almost rather start off 2-0 in the ACC and lose the Indiana game, besides the fact of just getting that big win. But I almost could see this team beating Indiana, and then we're all high on them again, and then we come back to start ACC play, and we're playing Virginia Tech, a team we probably should beat, and we lay an egg again. Or maybe we beat Virginia Tech, and people are really high on us, like we got it figured out, and then Georgia Tech, that second game in the ACC or something, we lay the egg. I don't know. I hope this team can become more consistent, to where we aren't kind of waiting for that letdown. I feel like that's how we were last year. Like even when that run started in the tournament, we're like, like it's coming. We're just we're building up hope, and then we're just all gonna be let down again. And obviously we went to the championship game, but to me that's kind of where I'm at. If that speaks about my confidence right now, I feel like maybe we're gonna beat Indiana, we're gonna beat Virginia Tech, and then Georgia Tech comes to Chapel Hill, and we just like lay a flat egg, and we lose to this Georgia Tech team that we have no reason or rhyme to lose to. Is I don't know. That's where I kind of stand here. But um, I guess, like I said, we need some of 300's energy here. We're really positive, and the um, people are kind of talking in here. Need to come out of the non-conference schedule with no more than 3 losses. Um, is Indiana our last non-conference game? I feel like we have one other one
We have the
kind of tucked
CBS
away.
Sports Classic, don't we?
Oh yeah,
Against
yeah. We have
Ohio
so we have
State.
the Citadel the middle of December, and then you're right, 2 more in there, and the Jumpman Invitational. So we have Ohio State and Michigan in there, and that should be the end of our non-conference. So we still got 3
I would agree.
non-conference, 4
I would agree
non-conference
with
games left.
that person's comment of no more than 3 losses at non-conference. Seeing how we already have 2, that would be a pretty good outcome at this point.
So that means if we
Knowing that
lose to
one's a true
Indiana,
road
we have
game.
to beat Ohio State and Michigan in those later 2 games. Those are back to back. So feel like we're halfway in the Big Ten or something. This is at least we avoided Michigan State this weekend. But other people talking about Pete Nance kind of getting comfortable. We talked about it a little bit. We've seen the big games from him. Now we need some of that consistency. And we've said that about Caleb now for 3 years. A little bit of that consistency. Are you worried about our 3-point shooting?
I was just thinking. You're reading my mind here tonight. That is a concern at this point. The percentages are down. Caleb and RJ aren't hitting them as consistently as last year. We don't have Manic, obviously. Pete Nance hasn't been consistent. He's had some flashes. So it's a little bit of a concern right now that needs to trend upward in order for this team to be successful, I think.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about late game execution. We talked about I think there was turnovers mentioned there, rebounding here, guarding the three. There's a lot of that stuff, and the good thing, I think Hubert said this in one of the post games, is all the problems that we're seeing so far this season are fixable. It's not like we don't think we have the shooters, like we're shooting poorly, but it's like, well, where's the shooting going to come from? It's just not there. I think everything we've talked about is fixable. I said this, maybe it was before you joined, but I don't want to bank on us trying to flip the switch late in the season and trying to go on the run last year. I'd rather us figure it out, and even if it takes another loss or two in there, just kind of gradually fixing the mistakes we have, as opposed to we see these issues all year and then it's like, oh, it's March, we're going to flip the switch and go on a big run. I don't think we want to bank on that.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game.
So, but I guess I say that to say, that is the positivity I have is that everything that we have is fixable.
Well, and we know this team, the monkey of being number one, if that's a monkey, it's going to be on their back, for a while. They're going to have to go back and earn that if they want it. So that'll be something a little different. Maybe that takes some pressure off. I don't know.
Yeah, again, we say all this stuff from hundreds of miles away when Hubert is in the locker room and at practice every day and stuff like that. But it would be really interesting to kind of figure out what motivates some of these guys. We think of people disrespecting us. Now we have number one. Like you said, like if you didn't figure out every game is going to be a fight, being number one, there's something wrong with you. So now, are they going to be motivated after losing the number one here? And I know I kept seeing the graphic about Alabama the last time they beat a number one, but and technically we are still number one until tomorrow. But does it really count to beat the number one team when they're coming off a loss and they're not going to be number one when the next polls come out?
Yeah, hardly felt like they were still beating the number one, especially because that's not the way Carolina's played all season, and then they were coming off a loss. I agree.
Right. But it would be interesting, mentally, like what motivates Caleb, because we've seen him obviously playing Duke, even his freshman year, we weren't even that good of a squad or whatever, but he went off in both Duke games, and obviously the run in March, everybody was playing good, of course, but Caleb was on more than he was off in those games. Now with this, it's like, I don't know what motivates these guys. And again, we say this, and they're 18 to 20. Well, Leakey's been there 5 years now. He may be 24 or something, but they're still young. You don't know what's going on in their day to day lives. We hardly even know, like you said, like Mondo's ankle. Like we don't know, the condition of those kind of things.
It's a tough time of season with the exams and all that, but those are just excuses. They need to step up. They need to play hard. They need to play for the name on the front of the jersey. They need to play for the team. And I've seen times when I feel like not everybody is bought in at this point. You know what I mean? And they need to see the team that won 17 out of the 21 to finish last season had bought in. And that's a work in progress. So as someone's commented earlier, trust that process and hope that this team plays for the team and buys in 100%. And those can be my parting words for the night.
Yeah, I think I've definitely been too negative, and I don't like it. So we need to kind of stop somewhere, and not that it's going to stop us from watching. I think at some point last year, we were kind of like, okay, I'm done watching this team. I know there was a game that I had something else going on. It's like I don't even really feel bad missing the game because we were playing so horrible. I'm nowhere close to that yet. That's not a button I'm hovering over either. Like I said, I think everything that we kind of see uh, is not going well or we're not doing well is stuff that we can fix. I think I still have confidence, or I know I still have confidence in Hubert. I still have confidence in these guys that, chemistry wise, gelling, whatever it may be, like that we can do it. And there's a lot, like I said, there's still a lot of season left. There's no reason to be standing on the bridge ready to jump or anything like that. So as negative as I've been tonight, I don't think I'm as negative overall as I've kind of expressed myself tonight. Maybe it's too close to the game uh, to really separate myself. But as I just kind of think about it, I feel like I am in a better spot than maybe I portrayed tonight. Um, but yeah, I think we need to end there. Hopefully, that's enough positivity that we end on there. Obviously, like we said, we've talked about big games coming up Wednesday, Indiana in Bloomington, 9:15 p.m. Eastern tip on ESPN. And then we got the opener for the ACC in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech on Sunday, and that's a 3 p.m. Eastern tip on the ACC network. So should be back podcasting after that one for sure. And hopefully we'll come back and we've got a big win against Indiana, and we've started the ACC off on the right foot 1-0 before Georgia Tech comes to town. So Gil, it was great seeing you again. Glad to have you back on the podcast. I know all those comments at the beginning there. To see Gil again is great. We love the
And
insight.
go USA. Let's beat Iran and continue on in the World Cup. I'm going to throw that out there too.
That's right. Hopefully, soccer for the USA is still going on the next time we podcast as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but this should be such a better time with the World Cup and college basketball, like feast week going on here, and the heels kind of dampened this week. But let's get back on the winning track, the train. The leaky train, all the trains. Let's get back on them. Let's come back next week after the Virginia Tech game in a much better mood, with a much better podcast. That sounds good to me anyway. But I do want to thank everybody for watching here live on YouTube, listening later on the podcast. I appreciate you guys. Keep supporting the podcast and sharing it around, and let's just unite Tar Heel Nation here. If there's any other time that needed, it's right now. So let's unite Tar Heel Nation. Oh, I must have mistook. Someone said Indiana, I mean. So yeah, let's beat Indiana on Wednesday if I said something else. But I will see you guys after the Virginia Tech game. Until then, go Heels.